And we want to turn now to our morning must-watch, and it comes courtesy of Fed Chair Stanley Fischer. He was speaking at lunch yesterday at the Economic Club of New York, and Mr. Fischer returned to the subject Fed Chair Janet Yellen last Friday had addressed in her speech, but this time with a different emphasis.
If you go above, if you go below the full employment, people's estimates of full employment rate by a couple of tenths of a percentage point, I don't think there's any danger in that. But saying we should keep going until the inflation rate shows us we're wrong, then you're going to change too late.
We're joined now by Bloomberg surveillance anchor Tom Keene. So help us read the tea leaves here, Tom, because when this first came out yesterday, a lot of people in the press said, oh, he's disagreeing with Janet Yellen. He's taking a different
Don't agree at all.
And
totally
well,
disagree.
Jonathan is on your side, saying this is really difference in emphasis. So what do you make of it?
First of all, this was an exceptionally important speech, and it was a speech that comes on the heels of other speeches of an adjusting and adapting Fed. I spoke to Carl Riccadon of Bloomberg Economics at length after the speech, and I thought Carl was brilliant on this is a new Fed setting up lower growth, lower inflation, lower rates for longer. This speech was arguably the most important speech I've ever heard at the Economic Club of New York. Vice Chairman Fischer was just brilliant yesterday.
And so, as we're setting up an entirely different rubric, a way of thinking about it, what does that rubric look like? We have not seen this before.
Well, it wasn't a rubric like in the 16th century with red ink, but when you look at the idea of Stanley Fischer, he was seeing red in his eyes about inflationistas and the growth optimists. And you really got a feeling he's not that convinced. Now, one thing he did say, John, that I thought was critical was the basic idea we're almost there on employment, we're almost there on inflation, and he goes, David, to overshoot, which is from his MIT, Rudy Dornbush, and the idea that overshooting can have a beneficial effect on an economy. And as we saw in the piece, he really pushed against that.
Yeah, I mean, the idea they're talking about here is we're not talking about an aggressive overshoot. They're talking about a marginal overshoot. Maybe you go gently through Nauru on the margin.
Yeah, but you're too young to know who Walter Heller is. David Weston knows.
Yeah.
And that's the ghost in the closet.
But Goldman Sachs pointing out in a report that even if you say undershoot U3 by 0.4% and you see a 15 basis point rise in inflation, that's not necessarily a lot from where we sit. But on the margin, that is something.
He walked through the 4 theoretical foundations to how you get low rates.
I think actually we have a chart we can put up. He used in his talk, actually, the bar chart that showed those, those 4 things.
This is a big deal.
Yeah, exactly.
These bar charts are a big deal.
I believe we have it. We're working on it.
We're working on it.
There it is. We have it there. So see, you have slower growth as the first one, demographics the second.
Yeah.
Lower investment is the third, and the fourth is international.
Here's what the doom and gloom crew would do. They'd add those bars up into one big ugly bar, which means we're all going to die, lower rates forever. And Vice Chairman Fischer said, do not do that. Right. And the key phrase here, Alex, was a complex mosaic. That's classic. If you read Dornbush Fischer's Stars, his classic textbook, that's the humility through the whole book, which is it's complex, it's a mosaic, and they're feeling their way forward to where they need to be.